Hello, tonight we're going to be talking about the real you. I'm Roy Burley.
And I'm Esther Branco Diaz, and this is the first part of a brand new series called The Real You. Good evening. Welcome to Trust Talks. We are back with a brand new series called The Real You. And if you're joining us right now, then welcome. If you've joined us before, then welcome back. If it's your first time coming across Trust Talks by the Purim Trust, then welcome. We're going to be discussing this subject tonight and next Thursday night about the real you and how like if you've seen the trailer for this little series, it's about how there's a version of you that you think you are, there's a version of you that other people think you are, and then there is the real you, which is something quite different. And it's not something that I can profess to have really got a full handle on, but we're going to be exploring that this week and next Thursday with my good friend there, Roy. How you doing, Roy?
Yeah, good. Hi, everybody. I can say hello now, Esther, without any interference. This is
It's
really
not
good.
interfering.
Yeah, it's like I can interact.
Yay!
Normally, people are saying hello. You won't be able to shut me up now. People were saying hello, and I just had to be quiet because it kept getting these glitches, but they're gone.
That's good. Yeah, we've had some technical issues. Well, I've had some technical issues for many, many weeks. So if you've been watching live or on playback, thank you for putting up with the feedback, because it's been a bit deafening at times, I believe, hasn't it, Roy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully that's all gone now. Welcome if you're watching. If you're there, give us a wave, give us a hello. We'd love to know who is tuning in. Like I always say, we're live on 2 different platforms, so we can't actually see exactly who's watching unless you interact, get involved, say hi. While you're there, just click that little subscribe button, give us a share, give us a wave. Oh, Aaron's watching, which is good to know. Hello, Aaron. I'm glad that you're watching because you are actually making technology happen. Excuse me. So let's give a little shout out to Zephyr UK, who support this program that we do. They make it happen, and we're really grateful to them because we wouldn't have a clue what we're doing, would we, Roy?
Most definitely not.
So we're really grateful for their support and for sponsoring our little program. But let's dive in. Let's see.
Just when it was going well. Esther, where are you? So it looks like I might be on my own. We have lost Esther.
Oh, that's how to panic, Roy.
Did you do that on purpose, Esther?
I don't know what happened. If you're watching and
Oh, no.
something happened then. Sorry, I lost connection, I think. But anyway, hello, Raj. Hello, Princess.
Hi, Princess.
Hi, Roy and Esther. God bless you. Thank you for giving us a shout out, Princess. It's great to have you back. Let us know if you're there and if you're watching. But first up, I'm going to do my little quote corner because you know I love a good quote. And I came across this on this subject that we were talking about, where it says, everyone sees what you appear to be, but few experience what you really are. Everyone sees what you appear to be, but few experience what you really are. And that really resonated with me, because I thought that's very true. In my life, I've really, I think, presented myself in a way that I think people might like me more. But in actual fact, I don't think I've experienced who I really am up until very recently in my life. So I'm not sure if everyone yet has even experienced who they really are. And we're going to be looking at that this week and next week. But let's just say hi, Judea. Good to have you.
Hi, Judea.
I guess you're in St. Martin's. Are you in St. Martin's at the moment? Good to have you joining us.
Still there.
Yeah. And Josh. Hi, Josh. Thanks for giving us hello. Haven't seen you in a long time. But it's great to have you with us. For those of you watching later on, these are the comments coming in live from people on Facebook and YouTube. So keep those comments coming. We'd love to know that you're with us. Yeah, Roy, what have you got to say about this subject of the real you?
Yeah, well, so there's a person who we think we are, the person who other people think we are, and then there's the person who we really are. So how do we become this false image or this false person? How does that happen? And where does it happen? And I would say that it mainly happens, if we were going to use Bible language, we would say in the carne or the carnal mind, or in the old Adam. We've got this sort of language. But I would say in modern language, it happens in our mind and our emotions. So because of our experiences, what we've done, what we've experienced, what's happened to us, we create an image of ourselves through our minds, which create feelings in our bodies. So we often think we are what's happened to us or what we've done. And sometimes I think we can, identify. And this false image, its nature is to identify itself with us, to convince that image of ourselves is us. So you see a lot of times we identify, you say, well, what do you do? I'm a lawyer, I'm a judge, I'm a police officer, and, I'm someone important. Or it might identify really negative, like, oh, I'm just really no one, I'm just homeless, I'm just a criminal, or whatever it is. It's like it's got a negative, but neither. And then the other thing is, whatever we project and how people's own projections and how we judge each other, we create images of ourselves that are not real as well, because we're always judging. So we judge ourselves and we judge each other. So we've got these kind of false images that exist in the mind and in the emotions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And when do you think that starts, Roy?
So I'm no expert, but I'm imagining it starts very early on. I think if you watch, children are very interested in how they talk at first, because a child might say, "Oh, Johnny wants bottle." So you can see at that point, Johnny doesn't know that he's this label called Johnny. He's still in his innocent state. He only knows that you call this person Johnny, and he hasn't yet connected, I don't think. So he says, Johnny wants bottle. But then later on, you see he says, I want my bottle. So I think quite early on, you start to see that we identify with this world, and eventually we kind of get lost into it in somehow. We get lost into what we taste, see, feel, experience, think, what people have said about us, all of our experiences. And we have this person. But I want to say that that's not who we are. And I think we can prove that. And I think if we can see that, or even begin to see that, it can be extremely liberating, So probably I would ask you, Esther, what was it like before you met the real you? How was it for you? Can you relate to what we've been saying here?
Yes, definitely I can. And I think for me, I've been someone who's lived most of my life really disliking myself, but living my life with self-hatred, condemnation, um, being apologetic for myself all the time with most people, being what I describe as a bit of a chameleon, adapting myself to any situation and to anyone just to win some approval, um, not being able to receive love in my life properly, um, feeling unworthy and feeling unworthy of good things, I think. So not having any expectation of anything good in my life. And I remember I've shared with you just a few years ago, I realized I was going to bed every night and I would pray before I went to sleep. And this is after I'd been through Bible college, actually, interestingly, that it was a prayer that I would pray every night of, dear Lord, please change me overnight so that I wake up and tomorrow I'm somebody different. I'm somebody better. And that was my prayer every night. And I used to think that was humility, but actually it took me a while to realize that's actually self-hatred. That's different than humility. It's totally disliking who I am or who I thought I was. um, and that being in that position of always molding myself to any situation, any person, that's such an exhausting way to live life that I even felt like I don't really know who I am. I don't really know what I like. I don't really know what I want to eat. I don't really know how to make decisions because I was so fully reliant my whole life of just wanting to be whatever you would want me to be or whatever my family would want me to be in order to earn self-worth, value, and love. And that's what my life was like before I got a glimpse really of who I really am. But I have to confess, I'm not fully there yet. At times, these are still my struggles. At times, I live more of my life in not being the real me than being in the real me. But we'll come on to that. And I think one of the big things that really happened in my life is I didn't get married until I was in my 40s. And I'd been longing to have a family of my own and to get married, and yet also feeling like I was aware that I wasn't really able to receive love very well. And that hasn't become fully evident to me until much later on. But I can remember a few years ago, because my husband and I have only been married for 3 years. And before that, when he was, I guess I'd say, pursuing me, like chasing me a little bit, or just letting me know that he liked me and he cared for me. And I think he really deeply cared for me. But if I'm really honest, I just found him so annoying, because it was like, who is this guy? He doesn't even know me, and he's just saying all this lovely stuff about me, and he's being so kind and wants to do stuff for me. And it would just be like this irritation to me. And yet the whole time I was hoping for a husband, but it wasn't going to be him. And I just felt like there was something wrong with him because he liked me. I didn't really know it was that at the time, but one day I was sitting down with my friend. I was like, oh, why does he just keep trying? Why is he being so nice to me and saying all this good stuff about me, and he doesn't even know me? What's his problem? And she didn't say a lot. I'm just going to share with you, actually. She just showed me this graphic that she'd seen on Instagram. And it was a quote that said, real love is offensive to victims because it believes in them in a way that they refuse to. I'm just going to read that again. Real love is offensive to victims because it believes in them in a way that they refuse to.
So that's the real love
Yeah.
believing in the victim
Yeah.
in a way that the victim doesn't.
Yeah.
Just to interject, Esther,
Yeah.
that somebody might be just watching this for the first time, that you suffered years of sexual abuse, and you were conditioned to think in a certain way. So
Yeah.
yeah, so just carry on from there, Esther.
Yeah. And in that moment, when without saying anything, she just showed me that graphic. And it was like, yeah, what insults me and offends me and irritates me about this man is that he loves me and I can't even do that myself. You know, there must be something fundamentally wrong with him because he sees good in me. And it really was a bit of a light bulb moment, because I thought, yeah, that's what offends me about him, is that he sees in me what I don't. He cares for me and I don't. Um, so these moments were quite big in my life, actually, because they highlighted some things that I wasn't even aware of. But that's kind of how my life was before I think I really saw the real me.
Mm. So Esther, can I just pick up on some of the things you said
Mm.
that's important. Um, often when we've come from some sort of abusive background, whether it's um, from ourselves in some way, self-hatred, or what's been put on us, and when there's this longing to be loved. I mean, you want to be loved, you want to be accepted. That's part of human nature. And you said you became this kind of chameleon, and so you become all things to everyone so that you please everyone. I mean, that must be quite exhausting.
Yes, definitely. And because you set a precedence in your life that in order to maintain that, you almost, well, for me, I came to the end of myself, you know, living just to serve everyone and to say yes to everyone and to be there for everyone 24/7 is not much of a life at all. And you lose sight of everything that you want to do or everything that's in your heart to do. And you suppress all of those things. And it's very hard to live that life because it is so exhausting, like you said, but it's also really hard to break out of that life
Yeah.
because you can upset and offend and disappoint a lot of people who have
Yeah.
liked you doing those things.
So people are not really compassionate with someone like that and thinking, gosh, this person's running themselves to the ground. They just let you, like pastors. I mean, what was your experience with people, employers and different people? Did they have mercy on you, or is it just like, man, they just take everything you've got?
Yeah, I think there are people who, yeah, do take, maybe not even knowingly, some of them knowing what it's costing you, because they don't know that you're doing that in every area of your life. You know, they
Right.
think you're conscientious in work, or that you're serving well in the church, or you know that you're just being a great friend. But there are some who actually, you know, take that for granted or push the limits, or even abuse that. You know, there's
Yeah.
every level of it, I think.
Yeah, so you've also got the predator who will, so particularly men who will see that. What was that like? Can you say anything about that? That
Yeah, I
men with
think,
that sort of
yeah,
predator.
I think, like I mentioned in our first series, actually, that although I was abused as a child growing up, I then entered into relationships like that in the same way when I was older, of relationships with abusive men. And I used to think, well, what is it about me that attracts, you know, these types of people? And part of it is, if that's what you've known, that's where you go. Do you know what I mean? You
Mm.
tend to think that that's all I'm worth and that's all I can expect. But I experienced a lot of physical, mental, and emotional abuse in relationships as an adult too. in a way that I was able to get out of those situations as an adult in the way that I couldn't as a child, but would still remain in those situations because of the impression I had of myself, the belief I had that
Yeah.
I was worthless.
Yeah. And I think the reason I just wanted to highlight this is because I think people, particularly who are in authority, leadership, employers, or even relationships, when you see this pattern, um, is to help the person, not to load. Oh, this person will do everything. Let's load more on them. Is to give them some help. What would have been helpful for you, Esther?
I think giving people permission to say no is very important because not
Mm,
everyone can say no. Not everyone is strong enough or confident enough to be able to say no without it damaging their self-worth or them being so concerned that you're not going to like them anymore. And I think always giving people a way out, always being able to say, there's no pressure to do this, or have you got too much on your plate at the moment? I guess it comes from conversation and dialogue, but um, that's really relationship, isn't it? Not
yeah,
to put pressure on the people that you care about
yeah,
to do things. And I think actually the biggest difficulty in pulling away from being that person that you've been is often in families. The very place where you should be most accepted. And my experience of that is that's where I experience the most difficulty, not being that yes doormat, the doer, the striver anymore, caused the biggest upset with family members. That's where it's been the most difficult and the most painful. And that's when my heart goes out to people who are wanting to not be that person in their families anymore, because it's very hard.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. So I think it's really important just to highlight this, make awareness, create awareness that family members, leaders, people in authority, be aware of yourself. Especially if you're a pastor or someone who's helping someone else, be aware of your own ego, the pride that you helping someone that can feed that pride. And because that person's in need, they come to you and they give you that authority really to speak into their life, to help them. And you've got to be careful not to, firstly, not to abuse that. That's the first thing. But to be aware, don't let it feed your ego and make you feel that you're important or more important than that person, that you remain and you keep an equal relationship. And if that person's not coming to you and doing what you want and in your church and they've gone to, it shouldn't affect you. There should be this freedom that you create in your ministry or your leadership or whatever it is you do, that doesn't hold people, doesn't control people, doesn't make people feel obligated to you as being some kind of superior. And you don't become that predator without realizing, because like you said, a lot of times it's unconscious.
Yeah, definitely. That's
S-
really good.
yeah. So Esther, can I just ask a little bit about how you discovered the real you? What was that like? Could you tell us a bit about your journey there?
Yeah, it's hard to sum it up, isn't it, in a few minutes? But I can I can remember some real key points actually, and the first one really that I remember is with you helping me, and again I mentioned this in our last series about realizing, or you helping me to realize that I was really hard on myself, condemning, like my own heart was condemning me. And in this conversation, you suggested speaking to the little girl that I was who was abused, because I blamed her actually for um, the abuse that was happening. I believed this lie that it was her fault and she was evil and she was guilty and needed punishing. And I'd held her to blame, which sounds very strange, but that's where I was. And in this conversation where I was just going to speak to her and say, I forgive you, you know, you weren't to blame, I had this picture of this little girl who was me. And I had my eyes closed and I was just thinking about this little girl. And there was a moment there that I just felt like, oh, there she is. Like, oh, I know you. Um, it's very hard to describe, but that's how I would explain it. It was
Yeah.
that moment of um, like I wanted to stay with her for a little while. I wanted to stay there. And there was another time when I was doing some of the techniques that we talked about in the last episode, of dealing with trauma and stress and anxiety, and where you just look at the thoughts that are coming to you. You just watch it, these thoughts that are coming. And there was another technique that you showed me about how you can, if you're feeling a pain or discomfort in your body, you can close your eyes and just look at that place that's hurting or uncomfortable. And when I did that and I had my eyes closed, again, I had this picture of myself as a little girl, and she was wearing this specific outfit that I wore when I was a kid that I'd totally forgotten about. It was this little Austrian um, clothes set that I used to love when I was a child. Hadn't thought about it for decades. And there I was as this little girl in this blue and white Austrian outfit playing in the garden. And again, I had that moment of, oh, there she is. Like, I know you. There was a moment of total peace. And just watching, she was happy, she was content. And interestingly, despite everything that must have been going on in her life at that point, she was a happy, content little girl. And it was a beautiful moment of like a reconnecting with this person that I knew before, like that she's
Yeah.
familiar to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And would you say that although you was watching that and you saw that, but you was one with that? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You weren't
definitely.
separate. That was you,
Yeah.
and you were seeing you, and then experiencing the real you again. You sort of created by watching. Oh, we always say if you can look at something, it means it's not you. So because you was watching, you was firstly seeing what wasn't you,
Mhm.
that false self, and then it brought you into a reality of your real self, and then you remembered and saw the picture of, or maybe you remembered first, but you came into one again with who you used to be. And maybe we can all kind of relate. I don't know if we can all relate to this yet, but you definitely get there through watching. We talk about watching and praying and taking every thought captive and so on. But Jesus said these real key words. He said, unless you become as a little child, you cannot enter the kingdom. And he said, the kingdom is within you. Paul and people use this same language as our spirit or our inner man or the real us. And so would you say that the words of Jesus actually that would relate to what happened to you, Esther, that you became the child again and was able to experience yourself?
Yes, definitely. And I find it really hard to explain because it sounds like such a weird thing. Let's be honest. It sounds pretty weird, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
until you've experienced it,
that's it. You
then
know,
you get it.
I think if I heard someone explaining this myself, I'd be like, what is going on? Because it's not something that I ever would have maybe related to before. And maybe it's that in the most difficult times in our life, in the times when the storm is really fierce and there's all this stuff going on, in some ways it's actually easier to enter into that place. Or maybe it's that you find the connection in a deeper way. I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah.
Like with the techniques we were explaining in the first series, there's this place that you can go to and it's different, you know? And
Yeah.
I even found in those moments that I would do the techniques and then find myself suddenly having this picture of this little girl, you know, oh, that's me. The peace that I found there and the identification with that is me. It's really hard to explain, and yet it's a beautiful place to be. It's a
Yeah.
profound experience.
Yeah, because really we are spirit, you see, and we are one with God. This is what scripture says, that our spirit, he who is joined to God, is one spirit. So once you come into experiencing your, Jesus called it born again spirit, whatever language you want to use, new creation, but once you come into experience with this, you realize, and I don't know if you can identify it with this, Esther, but you're connected to God. You're not separate anymore. You're not just alone in this world, but you are connected to the resource of all divinity, of all the I am, of all that is God. Do you relate to that?
Yeah, I do. And but I wanted to ask you, Roy, when you've experienced the real you, does it look like you seeing yourself as a kid?
Yeah, it does. Funny enough.
Okay, because I've
Yeah.
not actually ever asked
Yeah,
you.
yeah, it does. That's why I could totally relate. Um, because I think, like you said, I don't know why this is. Maybe we all experience God in some way as children, because Jesus said, when the children were they were really fascinated by Jesus, and they always ran to him, and they just wanted to be with. They were so attracted to Jesus. And the disciples, being, in charge and all the rest of it, were like, keep them kids away and try and stop them. And he said, no. He said, don't do that. He says, allow the children. He says, allow those children to come. He uses this old English word, suffer the little children, which means even if it's a headache, don't stop them, and he used this word, for such is the kingdom of God. So maybe our childlikeness and we are much more connected to God. And that's why when we reconnect to God as adults, we remember it. It's like, oh, I remember this, because we were created in his image and his likeness according to scripture. So, yeah, I definitely, when I go into my spirit man, I come into my innocence, like I'm innocent. I am no longer this person who has had stuff done to them and who has done a lot of stuff wrong, who I feel terrible about. That's not me. And I can see that I'm okay. Like I'm at peace. I'm good, and I'm connected with God and with all of his body, really, of all people, that are one with God. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think because next week we're really going to delve into like what it means to live in the real you. But I just want to ask some of the people watching, actually, how is this feeling to you guys watching? Can you relate to any of this? Is any of this making sense? What are your comments? What are your feedback? Do you have any questions about
Yeah.
this crazy stuff that we're talking about?
Yeah.
I
So
want to know. But also, Roy, because I've described what life was like for me before I really experienced the real me, which was, like I said, self-hatred, condemning, a real down on myself. But what was it like for you? Because that's one type of person, and that won't be everyone's experience of.
Yeah, I think it's the same. And I think what we do, Esther, is we have this ability to conceptualize everything. So who we are, God, our religion, our life, everything, or if we're not religious or whatever it is, we've got everything's in our head, which obviously relates to our feelings. And so we create God, if you like, and our lives in our own image, what we think and what we perceive and what we've been told and all these different things. But it's not a reality. It's lots of information. It's from the tree of knowing. This is good, this is bad. And we live in this realm. And the longer you live there and try and use your mind and emotions and your religion and your concepts and your philosophies, whatever it is you use to live, the longer you live there, the more you realize it's not working. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it creates more and more disappointment in the heart. The Bible says hope deferred makes the heart sick. So we get sick. We get sick and tired. We even use that word, don't we? We just get fed up. And we try again and we get fed up and we try again. And eventually it becomes so painful. And especially if you've got any addictions or traumas and stuff like that, because it compounds it. So even without anything bad happening, you get this. But you add other stuff, it becomes unbearable. It's like, I cannot live like this anymore. And like you were saying, Esther, that pain pushes you in, seems to push you into the real you. It's like you can't bear to live, and if you live any longer in your thoughts and feelings, you're not going to make it. And so you have to, it almost pushes you into your real self. Maybe this is why people do commit suicide and stuff, Esther, because they don't know that that's not them. They're so identified with it. And it's not until you, I'm okay. It's like, and then it's like, I can't go back and live there any longer, But to explain it, you see, people that have been in tremendous amount of pain, I think they probably might know what we're talking about. I don't know. Where the pain pushes them out of the false self.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I guess it goes one way or another. It's either going to be, I can't maintain this thing, this life that I've been living, this person that I am, this person that people think I am. People only see actually that there's one way out. But I think, do you think you can reach the point of finding the real you without it getting to that level? Because I think in my life, it's taken for me to come to the end of myself to go there, because I tried everything else. But can you find the real you without being in total despair or at loss?
I imagine you can, but I don't know, Esther. And that would be a good thing to ask the viewers, I suppose. I just know it's normally, for me, tremendous pain. And normally people that I work with one-to-one, the ones who get it are normally in agony.
Yeah.
And the ones who are not, they tend not to really, they're happy to, I think you're happy to live in your false self if you can get away with it. And just imagine everything's fine and this is reality.
Yeah.
But I think when you have this longing and this hunger for more, that this isn't it, that could be something also where you like, no, I want truth, because we very rarely want the truth. Let's be honest. We want to be right. I mean, even if you're right, Esther, and I'm wrong, I still want to be right.
Yeah.
You have to love truth to want to be free. And who loves truth? I don't think I do. I
Yeah.
think it's something I have to grow into. And the more truth we can come into, the more reality we can come into, the more we can become free. You
Yeah.
know, what I was just thinking, like before we came on, Esther, you kind of, you said, I just realized, like, this isn't the real me, you know. I still haven't learned to live in the real me. And I was like, yeah, that's okay. We're learning this.
Yeah.
Before I came on, you know, Mark Beckham, when he was on,
Yeah.
he mentioned this word, the pain body gets triggered.
Yeah.
Well, my pain body was proper triggered. You know what I mean?
Really.
And I was like, rah, you know, and normally I would just be lost in it, you know, because I would think it's me. But obviously, as time goes on, you learn to shut your mouth and sit with it and watch it. And so I did, and it was all good. But you know, that's the reality. I mean, I don't know if people know what I'm talking about, but stuff gets triggered in you, in your emotions. We don't always understand why this happens, but it creates anger, it creates frustration, it creates a rage, it creates a feeling of I'm losing control of the situation, I don't know what to do. And we think it's us. We think we have to control this world and make it all work. And then if you're able to watch it long enough and let it subside, you suddenly see, actually, I'm okay. I don't have to control the world. And this thing that I'm worrying about, Andrew Womack, our Bible school teacher, he used to say, in a million years, it won't matter. And I just started to look at him and I thought, actually, in a million years, this won't, in a few years, I'll completely forget it. And so with the false us, Esther, it latches on to everything, every type of form, everything you can see, taste, hear, and it wants to be able to control it. That's its nature, and it can't. And when it doesn't, when it's not able to, it gets really mad and really frustrated, and it triggers. But once you learn to sit more in your real you, you can just let it pass. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, are you saying, Roy, that the real you is always at peace? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
definitely.
what I feel like is there's a move recently in culture or social media of, oh, just be you, be the real you. Uh, and really what it's meaning is like you have a free license to say what you want and do what you want. But actually, that's still not the real you, is it?
Yeah, yeah,
It's you just being less inhibited perhaps, or I don't know if you've seen that in places like you just do you, and don't let anyone hold you back, and just be real. Like there's this terminology all the time now, I'm just being real. I might have said something really rude to my husband, but I'm just being real. But it's like, actually, that's still not the real you.
no, that's true.
And I, like when I said before when we came on this program, it's like I don't even think this is the real me, because I'm nervous and I feel like I've lived my whole life performing. And I don't even mean that in an extreme way, but I don't think I've ever felt comfortable with people, comfortable socially. I don't feel like I've ever been comfortable in my own skin, like we shared before, because
Yeah,
I'm always projecting this person that I've created, who seems confident, who seems together, and part of that I think comes from this background of containing every emotion that I had from trauma or abuse. Like I'm always a together person, and that's not me at all.
mm,
And it's really hard, isn't it, to break out of these molds that have become so habitual, that we don't even know we're really doing it.
Yeah. Can I say something on this, Esther? I
Yeah.
tried to bring this to our attention before, and it's the work of Dr. Caroline Leaf, and it's the discovery in our lifetime of neuroplasticity. And I'll make this real simple. But the first thing is, when I brought it up on the last program, Mark Beckin made a very good point that we got to be careful with this kind of thing, because we can start going into works and self and change our way of thinking and being, and it doesn't work. And I agree 100% with that. But nevertheless, he says everything has to be by the Spirit, by the real you. And what happens is, every time you come into the real you, Esther, it affects your whole body, your brain, your nervous system. Sometimes you even sense pain leaves your body. I don't know if you've had that as well. Like, it's very powerful. Your spirit is so powerful. If you can go in your spirit, be in your spirit, it affects your it's in the Bible, it's called the saving of the soul. So the soul is your mind, emotions, and will, and all of this, your heart. And it's been so affected by the false you for so long that the neural paths in your brain even have been triggered and programmed to be a certain way. So they don't just change in 5 minutes, in my experience. If you look at the work of Dr. Caroline Leaf, she says like an intense 63 days will change the whole neural path system, because your thinking will change, everything will change, and it will create new neural paths. So we have to visit regular. The Bible calls it living in the Spirit. It says if you walk in the Spirit, live in the Spirit. So the more you live in the real you, the more your spirit comes forward, and the more you disidentify with this old you, the old thinking. So you got to be real careful of the self-talk. I listen to myself, and one of my self-talks is, it always comes up, you have not done well. Always.
Wow.
Like every day without fail, forever. And I would always identify it. I haven't done well. Everything I looked at, I haven't done well. And now when it comes, I just watch it. I just let it come and I let it go, because it's not the truth. It's the old mind programming. So as I live in the real me, eventually those neural paths will change, Esther. And just ways I see myself, I can see constantly, like I get locked into the old me because it's got emotions, not just thoughts. It's extremely powerful. If you're not watching and praying, taking every thought captive, you're not doing this, it takes you over. It makes you identify, and you just get locked in, and it escalates. It takes such consciousness of spirit to say, whoa, what's going on here? And to see it. But the point I'm trying to make is, the more we are who we are, the more our physiological systems will change, our nervous systems, all of these things. So we won't get there overnight. I don't think, Esther. It's a practice. It's a discipline.
Yeah.
And this is what the Bible calls the renewing of the mind. Your spirit will literally renew your mind, just change how you see and think.
Yeah.
Because your spirit thinks much different.
Yeah. Isn't that good to know, though?
Yeah.
Those moments where I find that place, where I enter into that spot of being the real me, is total peace in a way that I never imagined possible. It's a beautiful place. And those you've got to watch those words that keep coming over and over and over, and watch them, because that's not truth. And
you'll think it's you.
Yeah.
Can I say, Esther, something that that you mentioned? How are we doing? Are we okay for time? Can we say
Yeah,
something?
we've got a couple of minutes left.
Okay. Um, there was something. I wonder if it's okay to talk about this. We were talking about something, and because real horrible things have happened to you, you came to an experience where you realized that what happened to you didn't happen in the innocent part of you, the protected part of you.
Mm,
Do you think that this is an important point just to bring out?
definitely. Yeah.
Do you want to say something on that, or?
No, you go ahead with what you were saying. I'm going to jump in when I feel right. But you
Yeah,
carry on.
well, I just felt like I don't know how I came by this. I suppose it's more the more I've sat with the real me, the more I realize that there's a sacred part of me that can never be touched. And this Holy Scriptures say it like this, that we are sealed in the Spirit to the day of redemption. That's when the Christ buys us back totally, but we're sealed. And I think the damage that happens to us only happens, I shouldn't say only because it's quite traumatic, but it happens to us on a mind and physical and emotional level, but it doesn't happen in our sacred part. And so, whatever people do to us, or even what we do, unconsciously, unaware, because we're so lost in our false self, um, it's not a reality. It's not the whole picture. And a lot of times we can feel like damaged goods, like we can feel like this irreversible, and our innocence have been taken, and this has been taken, we've been robbed, and all of this stuff. But I sense that there's a part of us that cannot be robbed, cannot be touched, cannot be taken.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted you to say it, because you can word it a lot better than me. That actually, if I was sitting here thinking, what is he saying? You know, I've been raped and abused, and you're saying that actually there's a part of me that's not been touched. That's not true. And yet, inside, there's a part of me that goes, I believe you're right. I believe that you're right. Because when I've been in that place and I've seen that little girl, she's okay. You know, she's not actually the little girl who's being abused. That's me in my spirit who is untouched. I believe there is a part of us that's impenetrable, that cannot be polluted, it cannot be abused, it cannot be violated, it cannot be corrupted, it can't be tainted, it can't be broken. It's impenetrable. And we said that in the trailer for this. You know, there's an impenetrable you that regardless of what's happened physically, mentally, emotionally, that's still not you. And it
So
reminded me.
sorry, before you just say that, but Esther, I just want to be clear. Did you experience this? Like, do you know this to be true? That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think when I've had those moments of entering into that place of total peace, and those times when I've seen that little girl, it's like everything in me says, yeah, she's okay. You're okay. I don't know if that answers your
Yeah,
question enough.
yeah, yeah.
I can't even give you a proper example as to why I fully agree with that. And yet, despite everything that I've experienced in my life, there's still a part of me that I believe now is okay, hasn't been damaged. There's still an innocence there. There's still that childlike innocence that's not
Mm.
been taken. And it was funny because when we were talking about this before, what suddenly popped into my head was a clip from a movie. There's a film, a Robin Hood film, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, that has Kevin Costner as Robin Hood. If you weren't alive in the 90s, you won't know it. But there's a bit in it, which I love that film, where the Sheriff of Nottingham, the bad guy, takes Maid Marian, the great heroine, and he's going to rape her. And she shouts out, "You may take this body, but it will not be me." And I don't know why I've always identified with that sentence of like, yeah, there you can do bad things, can happen to you, but it will not be you. And I don't know if that's offensive to people, but I believe that's true because I've experienced that. I can say yes to that. So anyone watching, if you're in agreement or not in agreement, let us know. Give us some feedback. We'd love to hear your comments on these big things that we're saying.
But this is your experience, Esther, and it's valid. And what does that mean now then? Like, how does that change things for you, do you think?
Well, I think that changes everything for me. I'm not sure that a couple of years ago, if you'd have said these things, if I would have been in full agreement, because I wasn't so experienced in finding a place in me that's okay and that is impenetrable. But when you start to get to know the real you, it has a profound effect on your life. There's a place I can go to that's of peace in every or any situation, whether they're triggers, bad memories, nightmares, whatever. But as I said before, I'm not yet fully living in that place 24/7. But I can go there.
Yeah, fantastic, Esther.
So we're really grateful to you guys for tuning in and following along with us and listening our thoughts on these things. We'd love to hear your thoughts too. And we're going to be back next week. It's just a 2-part series, this one. So next Thursday at 7:30 is the second part of this, where we're actually going to be exploring more and discussing more about what it's like to live in that place of the real you. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How do you stay there, Roy? That's what I want to know. How do we keep progressing in this walk of the real you, and how to live in that place? So thank you, Kelly, for your comment, just saying, wow, so powerful. Thank you for some feedback. And it's good to know that something of what we've shared has impacted you in some way. For those of you who are watching this later on, please comment still if you've got thoughts or questions. We would like to know what you're thinking and what you're feeling about what we're sharing, and just to know whether you're on this journey and on this ride with us while we explore a little bit more of the real you. And other than that, all that's left to say is we will see you next Thursday, 7:30 for Trust Talks by the Pure Trust.
Thank you for watching Trust Talks by the Pure Trust. To find out more about the work that we do supporting vulnerable women and children, you can go to thepuretrust.org and get involved with building hope in the lives of those who need it.